Gundam Wing rules. I was gonna write something more intellectual to open this video up, but nothing felt as right as this. I want to discuss the quality and impact of the show, and I wanted to do that thing where YouTubers bury the lead on what I think about it, but I grew up in the 90s and 2000s, and I can't imagine you'd believe me if I did. Gundam Wing is both an extremely exciting show, and one that tackles the truth that war is hell. It has a dense story that is truly beautiful. You know what? That's going to be the video title. This is the beauty of Gundam Wing. Let's do this. Gundam Wing was the series that really led the Gundam franchise into North America. And before you tell me that the original was known before that, I know. What I'm saying is that Wing was a whole new level of that and made it mainstream. And that was a purposeful choice, internet. Not necessarily the purpose of being an overseas import, but to open the door to new viewers. Mobile Suit Gundam and its spin-offs all existed in the Universal Century timeline. So even though they aren't all direct sequels, it is still daunting with 219 episodes over 7 series, plus a couple movies. Even with several series being compiled into condensed film form, that's still a lot to get into. I've been debating starting that show for years, and I don't really know where to start. On top of all that, interest in Gundam was cooling, so for the 15th anniversary of the franchise, they decided to take a risk and make their first new standalone series. And that is how they created G Gundam. Did you think it was going to be Wing? Gotcha. G Gundam was a big step in a different direction. The Universal Century timeline was, as most Gundam series that followed it, military-based sci-fi. G Gundam is a robot fighting tournament that different governments use to settle their differences. Like I said, it's a step in a massively different direction. I'm not that well versed on G Gundam because I never watched it. I did, however, have printouts of a bunch of the Gundams because they looked cool, and that says a lot about who I was growing up. But this video is not about G Gundam. So when Wing came out in '95, it was sort of like a return to form for the franchise. It had that classic military setting, but it also took from G Gundam in its multiple protagonist setup, handy for both its story needs and, of course, merchandising. So with this new spin on the formula, Wing did pretty well in its original Japanese release. Not gangbusters, but it didn't flop. It was a solid show. That said, when it came overseas, it really picked up. We ate that shit up. A whole video could be done on the impact of Toonami for the West. Honestly, I'm pretty sure it already exists. Several, I'm sure. But this really was one of North America's big groundbreaking series in their adoption of anime. On the subject back in 2007, Anime Nation writer John Opplinger has said,
"While Gundam Wing may not have made a major impact on the Gundam franchise in Japan, or Japan's anime industry at large, the Gundam Wing anime must be credited with significantly expanding the franchise's international consumer market and fan base."
And it's true, I have met plenty of people in my life who aren't Gundam fans, or even anime fans, who dig Wing. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon in that regard. Interrupting myself quickly because I want to take a moment to discuss what I have seen as the major criticism of Gundam Wing. The main critique I see is that the show, over its entire run, is that the Gundam pilots don't have a ton of development or backstory revealed. And I get that, but I think the series is focused less on individual characters and more on the vastness of the world as a whole. You know, this thing is sprawling in its scope and scale. Also, I would say the series is more focused on the combination of soap opera melodrama and overall cool vibes. Looking at the series through this lens may be a way to look at it in a more forgiving light, and I do think that is fair, but I also think it works. Moments like Hiro threatening Relina after being invited to her birthday, or the reveal that Zex is actually a peacecraft, are pure soap opera moments coming out of nowhere, just for the sake of shock really. It doesn't do too much for the plot. Looking at the series in this way, in my opinion, is a better way to appreciate the work by engaging with it for what it is, beyond just the nostalgia factor. Like I said, you might view this as trying to look at the series in the most forgiving way, and that's alright. This is how I interact with the show, and I'm just sharing that with you so that way you see where I'm coming from. Anyways, that's it. Back to me. Part of what makes Wing so good on a narrative level is the complex way it deals with allegiances. We aren't presented with black and white morality where our protagonists are solely good and their enemies are pure evil, with people shifting sides and having their own motives. Characters constantly question their actions as they see the consequences of war. For a lot of kids and teens in the 2000s, this was the first time they had a show like this, and it was expertly done if you ask me. Seeing Hiro and Troa become pilots for Oz partway through the series was so exciting for me as a kid, even if it was, for the most part, spy work. For real, that shit was more exciting than even the action sequences. And that's saying something because the action is great. I compared Wing to Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon, and I think that, pound for pound, Wing has the best action. No hate to the DBZ kids, I love that too, but this absolutely defined my adult taste more than anything else. Plus, as great as DBZ fights are, there is a lot of charge-up padding in them. I have gotta be nicer to Dragon Ball and leave it alone. It's a great show. So back to the narrative, I absolutely love how the series keeps you guessing. When Hiro detonates his Gundam in a battle he was losing, it is both a shocking moment and says so much about his character. And they did this in episode 10. Episode 10! They had what you would consider, especially at this point, to be the main character obliterate the poster boy mech of the show in episode 10. God damn. These characters rule. Honestly, they made 5 characters, the Gundam pilots, all trained to accomplish the same overall mission and make sure that they all felt unique in ways that made perfect sense for their backgrounds and upbringings. On top of that, you've got Relina, Zex, Lady Une, Noin, the 5 Doctors, Trace, and so many characters. Are all of these characters as fleshed out as each other? No, obviously not. They are, however, major characters who are all, in some way, well defined. I honestly feel like there are plenty of major movies and shows that have come out over the years where leads are not nearly as well fleshed out, and it's honestly sad. Okay, I gotta admit something now, and you gotta promise you won't tell anyone. You can't spread this around, and you can't look down on me for this. This is a judgment-free zone. I think we're far enough in that we can make that deal with each other. Cool? Cool. I have never seen Endless Waltz. I know, here I am talking about my love for the series, a series that has a sequel film, and I haven't seen it. But I am going to fix that now, so just wait here. Before I get into it, I should say I do know that Endless Waltz originally existed as a 3-part OVA that was then combined into a movie afterwards. I specifically watched the movie version because for a long time I was only aware of it existing as a movie and I wanted to experience the version that I would have checked out ages ago had I not been so lazy. Get as close to that sweet nostalgia as I can, you know? Gotta get it. I have mixed feelings about the film. The story itself feels superfluous. The series doesn't leave any loose ends that need tying up, so Endless Waltz doesn't feel like a needed addition to the story. That said, I think it was executed really well. As unneeded as I felt the film was, I will say Endless Waltz does tackle its themes in a more concise way than the series, since it is a more focused piece with a singular story, and not that sprawling, melodramatic world that it is covering as a whole in the show. The action was A-game, as I expected, with tons of gorgeous animation. Seriously, that 90s style animation gets me every time. The climactic battle had moments that were a lot of fun, and also put a great emphasis on the thesis of Endless Waltz anti-war philosophy, where the protagonists were defeating the enemies by destroying their weapons and crippling their mobile suits instead of killing the pilots within. Gundam Wing and Endless Waltz both take a serious look at war, violence, and achieving peace. Really, Gundam as a franchise does that a lot, and I adore that because you know, for something that is, for lack of a better term, a kid show, it goes deep on these ideas in ways that are wonderful. Also, both the series and the movie are great examples of how war will manipulate public perception with the use of public figureheads to rally behind, but it really does feel pertinent to the world we live in. Now, I'm not going to act as if Gundam Wing is the be-all and end-all of the franchise and its success. That does a disservice to both what came before it, for laying the groundwork, and the shows that came after. I think the right way to end this video isn't by coming to some great conclusion of its impact, but to come full circle to where I started. Gundam Wing rules. That's it for this one. Let me know in the comments what you think. A bit of a different subject for me, but it's something I want to get more into moving forward. Like and subscribe. Please like this video, subscribe if you aren't already, and until next time, have a good one.